You're listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. Before we get started, we want to hear from you. We'd love it if you could leave us some feedback or an episode suggestion on our Facebook or Instagram page at Range Minded Podcast, or you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you get your podcast from. We want to hear from you, and we want to make Range Minded the best it can be for you. Even if you just send us a screenshot of listening to the Range Minded Podcast at podcast@iishooting.com, that would help us out a ton. This is episode 58, where Steve and I compare the pros and cons of a revolver versus a semi-auto in terms of home defense, concealed carry, and a few other situations. Believe it or not, we actually came up with a more evenly matched argument than you'd think, depending on the circumstances. As always, thanks for listening to Range Minded, and we hope you enjoy episode 58, the revolver versus the semi-auto. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long, as always, and I am joined by...
The Steve Zimmerman.
The Steve Zimmerman from an undisclosed location in Idaho Falls.
In the bunker.
Although you will be back in the Treasure Valley in a few weeks here, man.
Oh, yeah. I hope you're ready for it.
I'm ready, and we're going to do a lot of podcasting, and we've got some fun adventures planned, too.
Well, we got an awesome episode coming up when I'm over there. I'm actually really excited.
I told Cody about that. Everybody knows Cody now.
Yeah.
I told Cody about it, and he's like, oh, I better get on that project I have to do for you then, huh?
Yeah, you better, Cody. What the hell?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get rolling with that, and just get excited for the next about month or so, maybe 2 months worth of podcasts. We'll see how many podcasts we can get out while you're actually here in the Treasure Valley. So.
Well, I'm planning on spending a little time at a movie theater watching a new movie. So,
really, what movie?
John Wick 3.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Shameful plug.
When does that come out?
It comes out May 17th, I think.
Yeah, there you go. Friday, May 17th. Well, you can see it Thursday night if you really wanted to, but we'll be busy that night.
Well, I'm going to do it probably on Saturday.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Maybe Friday night. I don't know. I'm going to take Gunsmith Jeff and we're going to go geek out at the gunfighting scenes.
There you go. And he can tell you everything wrong about the scenes.
Actually, have you seen any of the John Wick movies?
Yeah, I've seen the first one and most of the second one. It's all pretty accurate, actually.
It's legit. That's like, I think I've said this before. The John Wick movies are kind of like the Bullet to car movies, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Especially with his training, it's he talks about training with Terran Tactical, and you can see the videos of those on YouTube actually, and how much time and effort John Wick put into training for unarmed and armed combat. So
yeah, it's pretty legit. That's why I like it, because it's not this stupid 14 shots out of a revolver with a suppressor on it. It's the most realistic gunfight scenes I've seen, probably out of any movie, I think.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's I'm sure there's more out there, but
and he
it's
also
pretty legit.
What was I going to say? I'm going to have to count or watch John Wick again and count the rounds and see when he changes mags.
It's right on the money.
Really?
When he's shooting his HK.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I think it's a 45 he's shooting, so it's like 15 rounds, boom, mag change.
Yeah, he's got an HK, and then I think he goes over to Glock in the second one, right?
Oh yeah, he rocks a 34 and a 26, and
yeah, that's right.
And they're all legit, and a 1911 because he runs 7 rounds, he runs the gun dry on 2 dudes, and picks up a Glock after that.
Nice. Yeah, and
so I know even John Wick shoots a Glock. See,
everybody's wrong that doesn't shoot a Glock.
Well, they're just trying to get there.
I'm on my journey to Glock. Yeah, that's the excuse I'm going to roll with.
I was going to say transitioning, but that didn't sound right.
Transitioning to Glock. I will be identifying as a Glock owner sooner or later. But speaking of pistols, that's what the topic of this episode is pistols, semi-autos versus revolvers.
Yeah.
Because...
and there's a lot of folks carrying revolvers. I used to carry a revolver.
You used to carry a revolver?
I did. I used to carry a Ruger LCR, and I like the Ruger. Smith makes another great little gun. as I say that, biting my tongue at the same time. But
they make some great little guns.
They make great guns, but I'm not going to get into why I won't buy a Smith.
That's a topic for another episode.
Yeah, and I don't know if I want to even get into it. But I liked carrying it because it was light. The downside was I only had 5 rounds in that little air weight. And, that's the thing with revolvers. You're usually stuck with 5 or 6 rounds unless, you get a 22 mag that's like a 10-round cylinder or whatever. But
right. And that's the big argument I think a lot of people have just in general in terms of pros and cons of revolvers versus semi-autos, where, a semi-auto is going to have the capacity where you can have, 10, 15, 17, even 18, 19, 20 rounds in some semi-autos. But a revolver, I think the biggest one I've ever seen is like 8 or maybe 10 in a 22 mag or something like that. But that's not really for defensive purposes.
I would carry a 22 mag for defense, personal defense. Summertime, I don't know if I'd carry it in wintertime where, it's got a lot of penetration, honestly. But,
stopping power?
It's got a lot of energy. Stopping power doesn't exist.
We've covered that before.
But it's got a great deal of energy in that 22 mag, and they make gold dots in 22 mag, really? So why not? Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that's a pretty good little cartridge.
Nice.
It's light but it'd be like a secondary, not a primary carry.
Yeah, or like you said, a summer thing maybe would be how you would want to carry that. But well, I have some different categories in terms of pros and cons, and we'll see kind of where you land on this one.
Okay.
Because the first thing that maybe most people would do would be to buy a handgun for home defense, and that's making the decision about whether you would buy a revolver or a semi-auto pistol. Okay. And we've talked about how capacity is important, but the other thing I was thinking about is that it doesn't matter if you have 5 rounds or 15 rounds. If you can't put any on the target, then it's not really going to do any good.
Correct.
So
you can't miss fast enough, I guess, right?
Yeah, or as often. Because that it goes. We'll start with capacity in that like I said, most handguns or semi-auto handguns have 15 to 17 round magazines, and
or
revolver. If you're going to get it in 38 or 357, you're looking at 5 or 6.
Yeah. Yeah, 6 if it's a heavy framed revolver. If you're carrying like the Smith & Wesson Airweight or the LCR like I did, it's going to be a 5-shot revolver.
Yeah, and then you're going to have to really pay attention to what's going on. The other thing that's going against a revolver is the trigger pull. Unless you're carrying it with storing it with the hammer back.
Which is a terrible idea.
Which is not a good idea. Yeah, thank you for the follow-up. Then you're going to have a heavier trigger pull, and with that with that double action trigger pull, you're not necessarily going to be as accurate as you would with a single action trigger pull because it's heavier.
Sure, and then there's going to be somebody saying, "Well, just have some trigger work done." Well, then you're dealing with a problem if you have to use that gun for defense, and it's going to go get examined by the prosecuting attorney. There's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and the jury's not going to care about why you did any trigger work. They're just going to hear that he made the trigger easier to pull so he could kill easier.
Easier to kill somebody, yeah, and that's not going to be good. So, if you're going to carry a revolver, and I'm not going to say don't, because it's not, it's not my gunfight. You carry whatever you want to carry. Get proficient with it. Learn how to reload, speed load, whatever you want to call it. Learn how to manipulate that hammer and trigger to be accurate and quick. I know some very quick revolver shooters personally that are amazing, but that's their deal, not mine.
Well, and that's actually kind of what I was going to go back to as a positive for revolvers is that I would say the barrier to entry to learn how to shoot a revolver is a little bit lower, and it's a little bit easier the manual of arms for a revolver is a little bit easier. Now, in terms of reloading, maybe not so much, but if all you have to do is point the trigger or point it and pull, that's a lot simpler than having to
trying to rack a slide. So if you're dealing with maybe arthritis or or something, then it might be a better choice for you. But again, get proficient with it as much as you can.
Yeah, you're going to have to train with it no matter what. But just if you're maybe new to firearms and you don't even have a firearm, maybe you're looking at your first handgun, and you don't have that kind of training and you don't have that proficiency, I think a revolver would be a great first introduction into that, especially with malfunctions. I mean, revolvers, if they're going to malfunction, the cylinder's not even going to turn. But if you,
in some cases, yeah.
But that's also kind of catastrophic, I guess. If you think of nothing else in a defense situation but to point and pull the trigger and it doesn't go bang, you're going to keep pulling the trigger anyway. So I think you're going to get the desired effect. And
that's really the nice thing is if it's a primer issue or a cartridge issue, the ability to do a second strike on that primer is there, which is nice.
Right.
But again, it's something you got to train for.
Well, but I mean, the other thing too is that it's a lot easier to pull a trigger, especially under duress, rather than, and this is if you haven't necessarily trained with it, but having to take a magazine out, rack the slide a bunch of times, or have the slide lock back on you and then hit that slide release. That's a lot of fine motor skills that you're going to have to deal with. So,
and when you're in fight or flight or dancing into code black, you don't have time to think about all that other stuff.
Exactly. Unless, like you said, you've got it trained in you. And that's kind of what we're going to probably harp on over and over again. But,
it's far more valuable than a gun.
Yeah, that's true. You can have a $200 gun, but if you have a lot of training, you can make it work better than a $2,000 gun.
Yeah. I know people that run them high points too.
Really?
Oh yeah. I've seen them in competitions. It's kind of funny because they still suck, but it's pretty amazing. Some people can just run a gun no matter what it is, like you're saying.
Yeah, that's true. So, but yeah, just for manual of arms, training a new shooter, I think a revolver might be, an easy option, especially if somebody who's really nervous about guns. Mm-hmm. You make it a little bit easier. Actually, one of the first guns I shot was a revolver.
Nice. What was it?
It was an airweight. Yeah, Smith & Wesson airweight.
Nice.
So it had a 3 or 4 inch barrel. So it was actually my grandfather's revolver.
Sweet.
Yeah, and my dad still has it, so I'm guessing that'll be a family heirloom.
There's nothing like a classic revolver, like just a feel of a good, solid, older manufactured revolver. Everything feels so nice.
Yeah, it's hefty. And that's actually another point to a revolver, is that, it's heavier. So it's going to absorb a little bit more recoil. Even 357, it absorbs recoil a lot better. Because there's just more heft and there's more mass there to absorb it than, if you have a Glock 26 or anything else made of polymer,
Yeah, you just go back to like high school physics, right?
Yep.
Whatever, it takes greater force to move greater mass. So when it comes to recoil, which all that is a force of movement, if that gun's heavier, you're going to feel less recoil because it's absorbing all that energy.
Yeah, and especially, like I said, if you're new to shooting and maybe you're scared about recoil or something like that, that would be a good first way to kind of get to know, how that recoil works and get a feel for it. I think that speaks a lot to it. In terms of accuracy, though, what do you think?
I think it's the shooter. I don't think it's much of the gun. I mean, and there's some exceptions depending on what the firearm is, or even the manufacturer, because I've heard some scary stories about, how do I put this? Some of the less trusted manufacturers that make revolvers that there's very serious issues with the guns. But I've seen some pretty accurate shots with the revolver, and I've made some very accurate shots with my 43. So it depends on the user.
Yeah, I think it comes down to those fundamentals. And I mean, if you think about it, really, most barrels and semi-autos, just your average semi-auto is between 3.5 and maybe 4.5 inches.
Yeah, I would say probably 4.25 is probably the most common semi-auto barrel length.
Yeah, and then and your standard revolver, unless it's a snub nose, is going to be about 4 inches too. So,
yeah,
it's just a matter of.
And then revolvers are beefier, like we've saying, so you can handle a larger cartridge, like we've already mentioned, which is nice. I mean, there's a lot of guys that use revolvers for hunting and or at least, hunting and defense when they're out hunting game. I know people that have shot at elk with large caliber revolvers and taken them down, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's still insane to me that you walk out into the bush with basically a hand cannon and a scope on it with maybe a laser, and you take down an elk with a revolver.
Heck yeah.
It's just insane to me. But that's Idaho, I guess.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it. And
that is one thing. I mean, people argue with semi-autos between 9, 40, and 45, because those are your big three. I mean, we're not going to get necessarily into 10 millimeter or any of that jazz, but
we should. They make revolvers in 10 millimeter.
Do they?
Yeah, you can get I think it's a GP 100
in 10 mil.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Oh no, it's the Red Hawk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the Cowboy single action, isn't it?
That's the Black Hawk. The
Black Hawk. Okay, I don't know my Ruger revolvers probably as well as I should. So
yeah, you can get the Super Red Hawk. I mean, that's a great gun. That's probably the most common bear carry type gun out there. Mm-hmm. I'm sure we can get in an argument about, no, you get the Smith & Wesson 500 or whatever. I don't care. I would wager that Ruger probably has a lead on like 44, 357 mag, those type of revolvers out there with hunters, I would say.
I would say so too. I think they have more of a hunting kind of edge to them.
Yeah, and then the Smith is kind of like the cosmopolitan gun.
Yeah, the law enforcement and personal protection and all that.
Yeah.
But I will say, if you are looking at revolvers, you really can't go wrong with either of those two companies.
No. They either of them make a fantastic revolver.
But talking about ammunition choice, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think is kind of interesting about revolvers is that you do have a little bit more choice when it comes to a revolver caliber. You can get a 357, which will shoot 38 and 357. Yep. You can get, like you said, a 44 mag. You could get 50 if you really wanted to.
Yeah, or you can do like the 450. Yeah, the 454 Casull. Sorry, I had to think for a second. Yeah, you can shoot 45s through that.
Yeah, you can go pretty wild.
That's pretty cool.
Or even like the Smith & Wesson, was it the Governor?
Yeah.
That has, you could shoot 45 long Colt, I think regular 45 and
45 auto with moon clips.
Yeah,
and a 410
and a 410 shotgun shell. So if you want to have some variety in your home defense setup.
And when it comes to revolvers like that, there's two out there, right? There's the Judge and the Taurus Judge and the Smith Governor.
Yeah.
I would take the Smith Governor hands down.
Oh yeah, easily.
The Taurus Judge it's a good gun. Spend a couple extra bucks, buy the Smith.
Didn't we talk to Cody about that? About how I think Taurus has one of the most warranted firearms?
Actually, I think it is the Judge that is the most warranted firearm out there.
Yeah.
Now that was, I'd heard that a long time ago in one of my classes that I'd taken, one of my armors classes. That's what the instructor was saying. So it could have been a little biased because he was not a Taurus guy.
Was he a Smith & Wesson guy?
He was a Smith & Wesson guy.
Yeah, so maybe there's a little bit of bias there. But still, I mean, we've talked about Taurus before. I mean, they've come a long way, I think, but they're still not really in the same realm as Ruger or Smith & Wesson.
If it's what you can afford.
Better than nothing.
Yep.
So, but there's, the ammunition choice is kind of interesting there. And you can get hollow points in 38 and 357 if you wanted to go that kind of home defense route too. So,
oh man, or hard cast, real hard Burnell lead bullets that just wreak havoc in four-legged critters.
Yeah.
And I imagine they wreak havoc in two-legged critters too if you had to use it from defense.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I wouldn't use them for defense because I'd be worried about over-penetration and secondary damage. But yeah, you have
a lot more versatility when it comes to revolvers.
Yeah.
Because even if you wanted to practice, you could buy wad cutters. And work on your fundamentals that way, and it's a little bit cheaper because unfortunately most revolver ammunition is more expensive than just a case of 9mm.
Yeah, it tends to be, and just like any ammunition choice, there's less expensive options out there.
Yeah,
But in my experience, the cheaper options end up being super dirty, and you end up having to clean more crap out of your gun, and it's just more work than it's worth. Spend a little extra money, get good clean ammo, and enjoy it.
Yeah, but for home defense, it's not a bad option. I would probably take a semi-auto over a revolver, just because of A, the capacity, but B, because I know, excuse me, I know how to operate a semi-auto handgun and know how to deal with malfunctions and things of that sort. So, but for like my fiance, I would maybe consider getting a revolver. I mean, if she wasn't maybe keen on training as extensively as maybe you or I have, at least there's something there that you can practice with a little bit and say, look, if nothing else, just learn how this revolver operates. And if worse comes to worse, you have something, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I really still like the idea of carrying a revolver. There's days I feel, remiss about, no, that's not the right word. What's the word? I just kind of miss my revolver and carrying it some days, because it was kind of nice because of the weight. It was just so dang light that it was just easy to carry.
Sure. Well, yeah, let's dive into the carry side of things, because, home defense is one thing where, you can secure it in a vault, a wall vault or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you get into the concealed carry game, it's a little bit of a different situation. I would say that a revolver actually has more of it's not necessarily evenly matched, but the way that the concealed carry market is going now, a revolver is still a plenty good option for concealed carry.
Oh yeah.
Because we've talked about before how most encounters happen within 5 to 7 yards, or maybe even less, I think. And if you're thinking about, most people are carrying subcompacts now, so like you said, Glock 43 or a Walther PPS, for example,
or the 365, something that's super small and light.
Right. And the 365 kind of shoots a hole in my argument here. But the Glock 43 has 7 rounds?
6 rounds in the mag.
6 rounds. I think the Walther PPS has a 6+1 and then a 7+1 mag. You can get an 8+1 mag, but and that's why the 365 has, I think, 10+1, or is it 12?
You can get it comes with a 10 round, but you can get 12 round magazines for it, which is crazy.
That is crazy with their stack and a half thing, which we did a review on the SIG P365, if you remember.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a little while, but we had Sarah on because she owns one and she carries one,
and she loves it.
She does love it, but it's that thing where you have to get used to it, and I can't get used to it. But I haven't shot it enough, so maybe I'm not giving it its fair due.
I think I told you. Sorry, side note. I think I told you I shot I call it the Glockster, that 48X slide.
Oh yeah.
On my 43 frame. Man, that thing's accurate.
Yeah, I bet. But yeah, in terms of concealability, I mean, and capacity, you're only off 1 or 2, you know what I mean? And I think
True.
I don't have any data in front of me, but chances are you're not going to necessarily be changing magazines in a gunfight, because it's going to be over, out in the street, much faster than you think. I mean, now you might have a peace of mind.
Most gunfights are done in about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of those, people, I think, empty their gun in that 2 seconds without hitting much.
Yeah, that's true too. But if it's so close, and if you're carrying a subcompact that has maybe 6 or 7 rounds in it, maybe 8, let's just say, and it's not that much of a difference. Now, 2 rounds could make a life and death difference. I will say that
could be,
but it's not that far off.
Yeah, it's true. The other thing, I was thinking about while we were talking about carrying is contact shots. A contact shot with a revolver is not an issue. A contact shot with a semi-auto could be an issue. Now, when I say contact shot, I mean where the whole muzzle of the gun is pushed up against, let's just say, the bad guy. If somebody's on top of you or attacking you, and you push that gun all the way up to somebody's chest or stomach or whatever, it may not fire because it'll pull it out of battery. Where a revolver, as long as there's nothing interfering with the cylinder or the hammer, there should never be an issue. It'll still go bang.
That'll go right there. Yeah, you don't have to worry about pressing it up against anything, or even maybe it's pressed up against a wall or something like that, it's going to go bang. And you could make the argument theoretically that carrying a revolver too is a little bit safer than carrying a semi-auto. Depending.
I think that's more perception than anything, but I suppose there could be an argument made there.
Well, because you go ahead,
you have to overcome the hammer.
Yeah, let's say you have a quality hammer, or I'm sorry, that's a good start. Let's say
you need a hammer.
You have the revolver in a quality holster, side by side with a semi-auto, and you've got one in the chamber in the semi-auto, and let's just say it's a Glock. So there's no manual safety that you have to activate or deactivate.
Sure.
If you're drawing that thing out and you accidentally hit that trigger, when it's in single and a half action on the Glock, there's a chance that you might, have a negligent discharge, rather than with a revolver and its heavier trigger pull. You might be a little bit safer, and you might be able to make the argument in court that it was, it's such a heavier trigger that you had to, really make that decision. It's kind of a wash. I don't know. I think that's, like you said, it's probably more perception than reality.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. There's probably some data out there to prove it, but I guess there's at least a feel good in there where you have to overcome that hammer, whether it's manually or by putting a little extra force on that trigger to get her back. Well,
and I will say that maybe that even if it's just perception and not reality, that little bit of safety might convince somebody to carry rather than not carry, Yeah. And I would say that's a net positive. Maybe somebody feels safer with a revolver.
Well, there's a lot of old boys that'll only carry revolvers too.
Yeah. And I mean,
that's the only way to go.
Police carried revolvers for how long? But then again, they don't carry it now.
Yeah. And why did they stop carrying it?
Because of the bank heist in Florida.
Miami-Dade shooting.
Yep.
They realized they were underpowered and they ran out of ammunition, and because the cops were in code black almost, honestly.
Yeah.
They kept pressing that trigger with nothing happening.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy though to be stacked up against like that. I mean, what do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is one thing, though, I will say that has a huge drawback is for revolvers, whether it's home defense or, concealed carry, is reloading. I mean, you can carry moon clips, I guess, but still, I mean,
or speed loaders, honestly.
Or speed loaders. But I am willing to wager that the fastest reload in a revolver is still going to be slower than dropping a mag and putting a new magazine in.
Have you seen Jerry Mitchell shoot the revolver?
I have, but I don't think I've seen him reload it.
So he did 12 rounds in 1.2 seconds or something.
In a revolver.
In fact, in a revolver. So now he's a machine.
He's inhuman.
He's not human.
Right.
So, but you're right. When it comes to reloading a revolver, it's can be quite tricky. They have you mentioned moon clips and speed loaders. They also have, I think they're called speed strips that Galco makes.
Mm-hmm.
Super nice to carry ammunition that way because it's all it is like a strip with 5 rounds in it, and they're usually spaced enough where you can put two bullets in the cylinder at a time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it works. It's a nice way to carry. But it's not the fastest. There's no way that it's as fast as changing out a magazine. No way.
Right, exactly. And I mean, and you can train for both, but I would still argue that the average person would be, faster reloading a magazine. And yeah, I mean, you could carry the strips or moon clips, I guess, or whatever, but I still think that maybe carrying an extra magazine is easier. And not to mention, instead of carrying 6 in the chamber and then, a speed strip of 6, you have a magazine of 8, let's say, or 7, and then maybe another 8-round mag. You know what I mean? You're basically at capacity and a half with,
unless you're rocking like a Glock 19 or the Smith, the 9C or something like that, where you can put a full size magazine as a secondary mag.
Yeah, you could do that too. But then again, that goes to the concealability factor of a revolver versus a pistol. Did you find that it was easier to conceal that little LCR than the 43 or anything else?
It all depended on how I carried it. So I made my own appendix holster for it. Speaking of which, the guy that I sold that gun to never paid me for that holster, bless his heart. But it was all right. There was some way. I also bought one of those 511 undershirts that have the pockets under the armpits.
Oh, really?
But it printed way too much, even though that was, a compression type shirt.
Sure.
I wore it with a dress shirt, and you could still see, there wasn't much I could do without people knowing that it was there.
So when you're like, did you ever try that with a semi-auto though?
Actually, I have not tried it with a semi-auto because it makes me nervous not having a holster in there.
Right, not having that trigger guard covered is...
Because all it is a pocket.
Right. Yeah, I guess you could put like, I guess a sticky holster or something like that. But still, I mean...
Yeah.
But
that's just one more bulge to deal with.
Yeah, and I think, revolvers are, if it's a snub nose, a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to conceal, I think, especially because the grip is smaller traditionally.
Yeah, and you could ankle carry. I know a lot of guys that ankle carry revolvers that are, the small model 36, 37, something like that. But, yeah, I don't know. I have a small revolver again. I haven't shot it, actually, since I've bought it, which is terrible. But it's an older Smith. It's a pretty sweet gun, and that's why I'm not sure I want to carry and shoot it.
It's just a nice one.
Yeah, it's old,
right?
But it's in really good shape.
It's one.
Now, when I say old, I think it was made in like 66 or something, so it's not terribly old, but it's in great condition.
Yeah, it's old enough to not want to shoot it a bunch.
Yeah. And I need to shoot it because what good is it if it's, I'm just looking at it.
Right. And if you don't shoot it enough, it might end up in another boating accident.
Well, there's that happened. It's happened more than once, man. I really got bad luck.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't revoked your boater's license.
And, it's getting warmer outside. I'm going to get another boat, get it out on the water again.
I don't even know how you eat with spending all this money on boats.
Well, I don't know. I figured it out.
Yeah, you're pretty smart, I guess.
Hopefully my accountant and the IRS don't look at all my write-offs. They're going to start doubting me.
But anyway, yeah, I think it, with the magazine of a semi-auto in the grip, it's naturally got to be thicker, or, you're losing capacity and it's going to be longer, or you're losing capacity or anything like that. I just feel like a revolver might be easier to carry. And that's me saying that with never carrying a revolver ever.
You should. You ought to get something, because they are kind of cool to carry. It makes you feel like a 1960s detective, or something. But it's cool. Ask Bill. Bill used to carry.
Yeah, he probably had a revolver, didn't he?
Yeah, maybe he doesn't want me saying that, though.
We'll bleep it out.
He probably lost his in a boating accident too.
He probably did, yeah. Or a beach accident because he's from California.
Oh, yeah. He is kind of a beachy looking guy, isn't he?
Yes, total surfer dude. He'll probably love hearing that.
I could just see him in one of those old lawn chairs, that.
With the fabric and the aluminum frame. Yeah,
just sitting there, and he's got like his fedora on, and he's drinking an old Coca-Cola with a straw in it. Sitting at the beach watching the waves roll by.
There you go. But that is actually one thing that you brought up, ankle carrying, and maybe as a backup gun, if you really wanted to get into it, that would probably be.
I really like that idea personally.
You like a backup gun idea?
Yeah. One is none, two is one. So
that's true.
Or two is one is none. Whatever the hell it is.
You got it. I think you said it the same way both times.
Well, what I meant to say is two is one is none.
There we go. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is you maybe, if you're in an altercation or something, like you said, and you get knocked down to the ground and you're carrying it to, 430 or something, and you can't grab it, but maybe you can reach down to your ankle.
Yeah.
It's an option.
Yeah, there's a million and one scenarios, but It's always nice to, like you say, to have options. I remember hearing a story with an old boy I used to work with. He used to work at a Sportsman's Warehouse, and somebody came in and was like, I don't know, they were talking about small guns or something. He's like, well, that's stupid. I'd never carry one. I carry a 357 or a 44 mag. I don't know, it's like a J frame, a pretty good size, or K frame, whatever, a pretty good size gun. And Eldon's like, well, he looks at it and goes, where is it? Oh, it's in my truck. And he's like, well, what the hell good is it if it's in your truck? You're not carrying it.
Yeah, seriously.
Kind of dress the guy down. But that's true. If it's so big, I don't care how badass your gun is. If it's too big to carry or uncomfortable to carry, then why do you talk about how cool it is?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's super awesome to come to the range or go outside and shoot it, but it's not a carry gun if you're not carrying it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about it too, is that it's a personal choice for you, and maybe you're not comfortable carrying a semi-auto for one reason or another, but you are comfortable carrying a revolver, or the other way around. It's really up to you how you want to carry that and how you want to defend your home. Personally, actually, I wouldn't want a handgun or rather a semi-auto or a revolver for home defense. I'd want that AR sitting there.
I need to build another one.
Well, I just saw a video not too long ago. Actually, it was today. It was online, and the caption sarcastically was, "Why does anybody need an AR-15?" And you see 3-4 guys break into a house and like just violently kick the door in, and then you start to see some muzzle flashes when they come down the hall, and they all take off as fast as they came in. And you could tell it was an AR that this guy had. And it's like, man, like we've talked about before, it's where bad guys will come in 3, 4, 5 deep now.
Yeah.
And if you've got a handgun, and
that'd be so silly loud. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You probably wouldn't have any hearing for a long time after that.
But the job would get done.
Yeah, exactly. It actually, the first thing I did after I saw that, I looked up to see how much a 40 round PMag was.
Yeah, you could. Actually, what you could do is you get the 40 round PMag, and then you get the Terran tactical base plates. Or like a plus 5 or something, a plus 6.
There you go. 45 rounds in one magazine.
And they're still cheaper than buying a 50 round drum.
Oh, and far more reliable.
Yeah.
Although maybe
Magpul
make a 60 round drum now?
Yeah, the D60.
Yeah, is that what that is? I would trust a drum mag from Magpul.
There's some other pretty good companies out there. I can't remember who they are off the top of my head, but there's one or two others that make a pretty solid mag.
Oof. Yeah, D60 right now, just quick Google search, $89.99. A little pricey. You can get a 40 round magazine for $20, I saw.
And then the base plates are probably another $30, $40.
Yeah, so you're within 10 rounds for, 2/3 of the price.
Yeah, it's a way to go.
Yeah,
and they come in fancy colors.
Oh yeah, you can customize it. But that's the thing, is I wouldn't, we have to look at it from our level where we both have a fair bit of training, and, we've kind of thought about this and done our research and learned, the manual of arms for those things, because, I would say it's way easier to operate a semi-auto or revolver than an AR-15.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about necessarily a manual safety. You don't have to worry about, a charging handle or a bolt release or anything like that. It's just, it's a little more simple, but
it's harder to control.
It is harder to control. I mean, somebody can snatch it out of your hands a little bit easier because you don't have both hands. I mean, you do have both hands on it, but that was actually another point I was going to bring up about revolvers, is that I find, and this is maybe just me, but I find it's easier to shoot a revolver one-handed than it is to shoot a semi-auto.
I don't know. I guess I've never really thought about the difference. You might be right for you. I don't know. I suck one-handed either, honestly.
Sounds like somebody needs more training.
I do. I haven't been to a range in a while.
Well, I have. I just haven't shot in a while, which is unfortunate. But the only reason that I could think of from that was because, with a revolver, it doesn't eject the shells. You have to eject the shells manually. And when a semi-auto ejects the shells, there is some lateral movement there.
Yeah. And that, that's the other thing to think about. We talked a little bit, or referenced a little bit, of the malfunction problems.
Yeah.
You're going to have two completely different types of malfunctions, I guess there's going to be somebody, no, they're the same. You're right. They're the same. It's either going to be the gun or the ammunition. But the way to rectify those problems may be different depending on what platform you're running.
Right. I mean,
like you're saying, if with your semi-auto, you might be dropping a mag, tap, rack, or whatever. With the revolver, it might be done. Like that gun might be out of the fight.
Yeah, and that's kind of the good. Well, it's the bad thing with a revolver, but the good thing is you can try to pull the trigger again, like we said earlier, and that might solve your problem. So, but then again, with like I said, with a semi-auto, it might be the magazine or whatever, and so you can drop the mag, but you have to train for that. Yeah. You have to get those malfunction drills in your head so they become automatic.
Yeah, and then you have to not only think about what you're going to do, but you have to practice how to do it with a dry gun, unless you're in a very controlled place. But I would suggest doing it with a dry gun,
right?
Meaning no ammo.
And same thing with and reload drills.
Yeah,
and if you have a safety too,
and just keep doing it and drive those drills into your head as far as you can get them, and then do them again and do them again and do them again.
Yeah, do it until you get it wrong, and then do it, do it right, and then slow down till or speed up.
And when it comes to any platform, it may not hurt to even set up your cell phone or whatever and record yourself, so you can see what you're doing. Maybe you can even diagnose what's going on if you're doing things wrong.
Oh, sure.
It's not a bad idea. It seems kind of weird. I don't know, maybe not anymore. A lot of people take pictures, selfies, whatever, so maybe it's not so weird anymore. But it's another tool to help refine your skills, because then you can see maybe you're doing something wrong and it looks bad or feels bad, but when you go to the video, you can say, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing wrong. Yeah. That's way too sloppy. My hand's too low, my hand's too high, whatever.
Yeah, and I've seen Jessica do that with people in the range where she'll videotape them and then say, hey, look, this is what you're doing. And then it makes sense pretty quickly with people, and they can correct that pretty quickly. And all you have to really do is just set up your phone in the booth if you're at an indoor range, and you'll be able to kind of frame it properly to see where, you are shooting, and you can diagnose problems that way. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, and then make sure if you are setting any kind of cameras up that you're using common sense too, is you're not putting anybody's safety in danger in any way or aspect. Just kind of plan ahead, think ahead of what you're doing. Because I imagine there's probably some ways that you could really screw something up and hurt somebody or yourself. Yeah.
Another disadvantage that I thought of for revolvers is that the sights are usually pretty rudimentary. Yes. You can get fiber optics or whatever, but they're not as good, I don't think, as sights on a semi-auto with, night sights, or now that, everybody's putting red dots on semi-auto pistols.
Yeah. The more modern revolvers, they'll have a dovetail or a way you can interchange the sights a little bit better. But, you're right. Some of the older guns.
Yeah. Like
my LCR, all that was a sight groove above the cylinder and a blade at the end of the barrel.
Yep, and that's what the sights were on older, revolvers too. My grandfather's revolver is pretty much the exact same. It's pretty rudimentary. And you don't really, like you said, the modern ones have maybe some either dovetail or maybe some of them even have rail accessories now, but you can't really put a light on a revolver.
Not the older ones.
Not the older ones.
Crimson Trace makes some good options as far as lasers for revolvers now. Some of them come integrated in some of the newer Smiths because they're owned by the same company. So you guys know. At least they used to be.
Crimson Trace and Smith & Wesson are owned?
Yeah, they're all owned by whatever it is, outdoor blah blah something or other.
Oh, interesting.
American Outdoor Brands or whatever it's called.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's to that point. There's they're still making revolvers. I think there's still definitely a place for revolvers. So it's just a matter of, or like
and everybody. I think you should have one, at least one.
Oh yeah, if you have a collection, that's going to be what's next on my list, as a revolver of some kind.
Yeah, you need to.
My dad, it was funny. He's like, I'm like, well, do you want you're not going to sell that revolver. He goes, no. And I'm like, okay, well, are you going to give it to me at some point? And he goes, well, tell you what, I'll trade you. If you can get me a nice 1911, I'll trade you. Okay. I'll see what I can do.
Well, get him a 10 millimeter. I'm just,
yeah, right.
I don't want 10 millimeter.
No, Rock Island Armory, here I come.
Yeah. I don't. They make an all right gun.
No, there's nothing bad about it, but I mean, I'm not gonna go for a Dan Wesson or anything crazy like that. Or they don't make 1911s. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Oh, they do. That's right.
Yep.
Sorry.
You can get a Dan Wesson.
I said Dan Wesson. I was thinking somebody else. That's why. Like a Wilson Combat or something. No, you're gonna.
Oh,
I'll get you a.
Nighthawk Customs.
Yeah, okay. $3,000 later. Although I will say, you know what? One revolver that I would like to get just for the comedy factor is that Chiappa Rhino.
You know what? I was thinking about that gun earlier when we first started the podcast.
Oh, really?
That is a great gun to shoot.
Well, that's what made me think about modern revolvers. Because it really kind of is the next, it's like a futuristic revolver. It shoots from the bottom of the cylinder.
Yeah.
For recoil control, and it looks really badass.
Yeah, it's until you shoot one. Like, I think they look hideous. Personally, I think that's not.
That's why I think they look great.
But when you shoot it, you be like, "Wow, this is pretty awesome." Shooting 357s through a snub nose. I shot one.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah,
nothing.
They're expensive, but they're pretty cool. And I've never shot one. I need to do that some way, somehow. Some people even carry them. Oh
yeah,
a little.
They're
30, I think,
little bulky. But I think they're cool. I would buy one.
Yeah, I would. I'd be cool with that. Yeah, I'm just looking at the 200 DS 357 Magnum. It's got like a 2-inch barrel. It's a bulky but tiny gun at the same time.
And they actually make one that's got a 9mm/357 option. You can put a different cylinder in it that's recessed for moon clips.
Really?
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool. Yeah. So there's still, I think, some innovation going on there, but yeah, I would say, unless you're specifically looking for a brand new revolver, that's been made in the last 5 years, maybe 10 years, you're not going to find one with an accessory rail on it. So that's no lights. No. Like you said, you can get a grip laser.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Smith has that new, I can't remember what model it is, but it's got an auxiliary rail. You can throw stuff on it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean,
it's one of the performance centers.
You can put a red dot on. Yeah. If you have the rail on it, you can put whatever you want on there. And, at the same time, you've seen, we were just talking a little while ago about hand cannons with scopes on them. It's possible. Yeah. So, but traditionally, not really.
Yeah. I like revolvers. I think they're fun to shoot. I'll probably end up getting one that's in 22 or 22 mag because they're just fun. My dad's got an old 3-screw Ruger single 6 3-screw. Mm-hmm. If he ever sells, I'm going to be so mad at him.
Yeah, there's a lot of history that goes into them. That goes back. I mean, revolvers have been around for almost 200 years.
Very long time.
It's been around a lot longer than the semi-autos that have only been around for about 120 years. So,
yeah, they've got some great history, and I mean they shaped the country.
And Samuel Colt made men equal.
Yep, God made all men, but Sam Colt made them equal.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that's where we've landed on this is just get both and train with both.
You might as well. In fact, one of the guns that I absolutely regret selling was a revolver. I traded it for a sight tool.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was a good deal for both of us.
Well, that's important.
And I don't know if he's listening or not, but yeah, that's a sweet gun. And in fact, I'm not going to say what it is, and we'll see if the listeners know what kind of revolver you can suppress. And that's the gun I got rid of.
Really?
Let's see. Yeah, we'll see if they can guess what it is. You can post it up on our Facebook page if you know.
Yeah, there you go. That'd be fun.
It's and yes, there is a revolver out there that you can suppress,
which would be amazing to shoot as well.
Yeah, and he's going to eventually do it. I asked him last time I saw him if he'd threaded the barrel on it yet. He said no, not yet. So,
well, once that happens, we'll need the video and we'll need to post it on the Facebook page.
Yeah. And the sad thing is somebody's going to Google like, oh yeah, I know what it is. It's this.
But that's okay.
But I'd be curious to see if somebody knew what it was right off the bat.
Yeah, you'll get some bonus points from us if you do know what it is. So,
yeah, some kudos.
But we'll close on that for now. Hopefully, we've shed some light on some differences between the two, and if you're looking to get into your first firearm, maybe we've helped you make that decision. Let us know. Podcast@iishooting.com, Facebook.com/range-minded podcast. And you can search Range-Minded Podcast on Instagram as well. I actually just posted a picture yesterday, or the other day rather now, about that awesome custom blue safe from Rhino Safes at the shop.
Man, that safe's cool. I don't know why somebody hasn't scooped that thing
I think
up.
it's still for sale. I mean, by the time you're listening, it might be gone, but it's a beautiful blue custom paint job Rhino safe, and looks just beautiful.
It's pretty badass. My buddy Bob Runnings is the one that did all and it's hand painted pinstripes. It's the legit real deal. He's an old school pinstripe dude from California.
Yeah, it's very cool.
The dude is awesome, and that is legit.
Yeah, and it made me think actually we should have Old Man Rob on again and talk about safes again a little bit, and maybe talk about hunting too, because that's his big deal thing. So,
you know who we should try to get on? His Barrett.
Oh yeah,
because he just did that rug skinning class or whatever.
Yeah, he did.
That'd be pretty awesome. He's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And he carries that big ass revolver on his chest. He's got a chest rig that he carries this revolver. Have you seen this thing?
Knowing Barrett, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's kind of I don't want to ask him if it's ironic or not, but it's great.
He's just a big goofy guy. We get along really well.
We'll have to have him on soon. So, but yeah.
And if there's something, I was just going to throw this out too. Maybe you're going to say, we usually say it once in a while. Is if there's something that you guys want to learn about or get to know somebody at the store or a product or anything, feel free to message us on our Facebook page or email us anytime, and we'll get you some intel on
yeah,
something.
We're going to start down the road here doing some product reviews, some things we carry at the shop that might be worth your while to check out, and we'll do some testing with it and, dive into the classics a little bit.
Who knows? There might be some giveaways along the way.
That's true.
Too.
You might be able to win something from Range Minded Podcast as well. So stick with us. Let us know what you want to hear, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, peace out, guys.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.